You're watching the History Fella channel. In this video we're looking at the Battle of Second Manassas, or the Second Bull Run. By the summer of 1862, President Lincoln had decided the Eastern Theatre needed a new man to run it. The disaster at First Bull Run under Brigadier General Irvin McDowell had led to his demotion to take charge of a single corps. His replacement, Major General George B. McClellan, had been outfoxed by Robert E. Lee during the 7 Days Battle outside of the Confederate capital of Richmond, resulting in the Army of the Potomac becoming marooned on the peninsula in their entrenchments. Relieving McClellan of his dual commands, Lincoln now installed Henry Halleck as General-in-Chief and Major General John Pope to lead the Union troops in the Eastern Theatre with a new formation, the Army of Virginia, to be reinforced with McClellan's men. Like his president, Pope hailed from Kentucky, but had relocated to Illinois, and in the early days of the war had enjoyed some localized success in the Western Theatre. Pope's bombastic claims of what a successful commander from the Western Theatre might accomplish were mocked by his own officers and men, while his southern opponents loathed his thirst to prosecute a total war in Virginia. It was said that Lee could not wait to test his miscreant in the field. He would soon have his chance, as Pope sought to fulfill the two objectives set for him: to ensure the defense of Washington by thwarting any Confederate thrust from the Shenandoah Valley, and an attempt to draw Lee away from Richmond to face destruction. The might of the two Federal armies was now under Pope's command, forcing Lee to go on the offensive to tackle them separately before they could combine and overwhelm Richmond. He divided his army, leaving a token force to tie down McClellan and the Army of the Potomac, while heavy reinforcements travelled north to Major General Thomas Stonewall Jackson's army of the Shenandoah in order to thwart Union plans. The Confederates seized Gordonsville, a railroad supply hub, forcing Pope to retreat northwards 30 miles towards Culpeper Courthouse and wait for his whole army to assemble. Jackson continued his advance, winning a costly victory at Cedar Mountain on August the 9th, and then waited for Lee and his trusted subordinate, Major General James Longstreet, to join him by the Rapidan River. Against all military logic, Lee divided his army again, this time sending Jackson on August the 25th to skirt around the Union flank by forced march through Thoroughfare Gap, reaching the Union supply depot at Manassas Junction and threatening Union lines of communication. Despite Confederate cavalry screening Jackson's movements, Pope now finally realized he faced Jackson's whole corps and drew up plans to isolate and destroy him, unaware of Longstreet's and Lee's forces nearby. On the morning of August 29th, Jackson's brigades took up positions on an old railway embankment west of Manassas Junction. As 4 separate Union assaults assailed them, the final one only being held back by his men hurling rocks at the Federals once their ammunition had run out, Jackson still held his position. By evening, both sides had settled for a decisive end the following day. Pope, in the mistaken belief he now had the Confederates on the run at last, while Jackson was now joined by Lee and Longstreet for the final battle. Pope ordered a general pursuit of the rebels in the next morning. They ran into trouble almost immediately. Longstreet's artillery decimated the Union attacks, and by late afternoon Lee ordered a general advance to drive Pope from the field. Jackson's and Longstreet's wings collapsed both Union flanks as they retreated back to the banks of Bull Run. Although managing to successfully withdraw and realign the next day by September the 1st, with another march by Jackson's foot cavalry threatening his right flank, Pope ordered a federal retreat back to the safety of Washington's fortifications. The fighting had been far more brutal than the first Bull Run, with over 22,000 casualties. The South was jubilant that Pope had been driven out of the Eastern Virginia, marking the end of his tenure as the head of the Union forces in the Eastern Theater. He would be transferred to the West to fight the Sioux. For Lee, Longstreet, Jackson, and the Army of the Northern Virginia, they had proven once and for all that it was a power to be reckoned with. The way was now open for a strike northward into Maryland and to take the war to the Union.